Welcome to Junkyard Theory, folks. Tonight's guest is Lisa Carney. She is a professional retoucher, and chances are you've seen not one, but quite a lot of her work without even knowing that she had a part in it. She had her amazing magical hands in making these amazing posters. And me personally, I'm a posters fan. Even before I go see a movie, or if I go to a video store, I spend quite a lot of time just staring at the artwork on on the front of the DVDs or the Blu-rays or the posters, and it's one little piece of marketing that goes a long way. And we got the lady behind so many of those cool artworks. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. Are you Bowen?
Ayubowan to you, and thank you for having me. And it should be an interesting conversation about what the machinations are behind all those posters, because it's a little crazy sometimes.
I am so excited to have you on board, and there's a lot to talk about. We've never had a poster artist on the show, so before we get down into posters, I want to talk a little bit about where you come from, what's your origin story. Just talk to me a little bit about that.
Awesome. Well, like you, I am very into posters, always have been. And I went to school to be a photographer. So I thought I was going to be a fashion shooter. Yeah. That didn't quite work out the way I wanted it. That community was not the community I ended up going to be in. And there was a finishing house back then. And a finishing house is where you get the final poster produced. So someone else designs it and then it's finished. And that was right next to a place where I was working. And I kept walking by and I'm like, oh, these posters are so cool. I really want to do this. So I did something kind of different. I walked in, I said, what would it take for me to work here? I really want to do this kind of work. Keep in mind, I had a degree in photography, which helped, certainly helped. And at the time, kind of a long time ago, and Photoshop was just coming out. I think there were no layers even at that stage. But these finishing artists, they used proprietary hardware. So these machines, these computers were like $1 million machines, like a Flame or a Henry or a Shimaseki machine. And you'd have these giant suites. Well, they would hire Photoshop artists to do the masking or do prep work. So basically, these folks said, well, if you go away and learn how to mask in Photoshop and come back and you can do that really, really well, we'll give you a shot. And so I went away, I worked 3 different jobs. I practiced for about 6 months. And I came back and I said, hey, I figured out how to do this masking business. And so what they did, I'll never forget this, because finishing houses did advertising, not just movie posters. Really expensive product they were producing. I came in one night, they set me down with a Wacom tablet. I don't know if you know what a Wacom tablet is, but it's a tablet you use to draw with Photoshop on. And those were kind of new. This tablet was like huge. They hand me the pen. I'd never done this in my whole life. I had always worked with a mouse. And they gave me this Barbie doll job, the plastic dolls. And when they make those, they stuff pins in them to put their hands or different position. There's a pin in it, and you have to retouch the pin out. So they shut me up in this studio at 9 at night. Everybody leaves, and they say, you clean up this doll perfectly, and we'll see you in the morning. Can you imagine? And I'd never worked on this my whole life. And I was like, I want to do movie posters. Wait, Barbie? Wait, what? But evidently, I did a good job, and they hired me, and it started me down this whole path of, instead of being a photographer, I was now a Photoshop artist. And
but you never gave up photography as well, right?
No. But I'll tell you anything about photography versus Photoshop and art and how it relates to entertainment art for me. So I've been doing this 30 years. That was 30 years ago. 30. I started when I was 12, obviously. But I'll tell you, the interesting thing for me personally is my photography is my art. It is part of my soul. And when that gets rejected, that's really painful, really super painful. The thing about movie posters that I find really fascinating is I'm detached from it. So I'm actually providing a service for someone and selling something for them. So it would be like if I was doing a product for you for your film, I'm not attached to it. Like if I do the sky is too bright or you want a different color or the composition isn't what you want, then it doesn't matter because it's for you. Whereas my photography was for me. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Definitely
So
does. Yeah.
that's why I made the change because it was just too painful. Isn't that crazy? It's just too painful to release my vision. Yeah.
And you know, the entertainment industry is a place where you get a lot of rejections rather than yeses. So
Oh
a lot
my
of
heavens.
no's.
Yeah, a lot of no's, and for really crazy reasons. Like really crazy. So, and there's a whole difference between design and finishing, by the way. Big, huge differences. Different
Talk to
skill
me about
set.
that.
Yeah, I would love to because I think most people don't know this. So, as a designer, you get paid way less, like by half, than a finisher. But I will tell you, I think being a designer is way harder. Designing a movie poster and coming up with concepts and ideas, you have to be really flexible. You have to be really fast. You have to be really creative. And you get paid half as much as a finisher. Now, a finisher is someone who is very meticulous, and it's all about, I'll give you an example. So let's say for the new Spider-Man film, they do 1,000 comps. They finally pick one. They finally say, great, this is the one we want to sell this product, or 4. They pick maybe 4 different versions. Then they give that to a finisher, and a finisher starts from scratch, rebuilds that file, start to finish, perfect and large. So it's a different kind of skill set. It's meticulous, it's slow, and it's not creative. Listen to this. This is very important. This is not creative. So someone else has come up with, when they're wearing the designer hat, the creativity, the color, the combination, the look, and a finisher rebuilds it. So finishers make great money, but it's not a creative endeavor. It's really a technical endeavor.
Wow.
Does
So
that make sense?
essentially you're creating like a copy of something, but way better.
That's exactly right. So it's a different skill set, like painting hair and doing skin testing, that kind of thing. So what I do to keep the creative part of it, because that's so fun, is I do design work, but it's only a small portion of my business because the money's in finishing for me.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense? And it's good to know who you are. Like if someone really loves Photoshop and loves design, but it hurts them when people say their work is crap or isn't working or whatever language they use, then being a finisher might be a better avenue.
Oh, so I never really knew, like, you know, that there was that much of a disparity when it comes to the payment and like the job requirements between a designer and a finisher. So
half designers make half as much. It's crackers. I think it's ludicrous. I think the designers should make more because I think it's a more important part of the process.
Yeah.
But I don't make the rules. I just do the work. So that's why I call myself a finisher and a designer as opposed to one or the other.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I have to tell you, it's a really interesting process on the decision making for coming up with key art. So I have had design jobs where I've seen a film, which is very rare. Usually don't get to see anything, which is fascinating. And I have been told to design it in a way that is completely contrary to the film. So I'll give you an example. I don't think I'll get in trouble for this. There was a movie called Diary of a Teenage Girl. Really interesting film. Dark, disturbing. Great film. Set in 1970s San Francisco. All right, 1970s San Francisco has a very particular color scheme. And when you see the film, it is filmed with that color grading. It's beautiful browns and oranges, avocado and yellow. Well, when the movie studio, was it a movie studio? No, it was an ad agency, an entertainment ad agency that was contracted by the movie studio, came to me to come up with some designs. They said, definitely don't do 1970s color. Don't. The whole film is filmed in that color. Like, what the hell? Like, are you crazy? And this film was disturbing. And they wanted it to have a very family-friendly feel to it.
Oh, wow.
I will tell you, though, it's the kiss of death for me if I've seen the film and then they want something contrary because my brain just can't do it. I just can't. I'm like, no, 1970s color. Now, I'm quite pleased with what came out. I didn't do the finish. It's my design, but I didn't do the finish on that one. And I like how it worked, but I didn't follow the brief from the client. So I'll tell you about that, about what you do with a brief. Like as a designer, if you're strictly a designer versus a filmmaker who's doing your own poster, you give them what they ask for. Okay, it's very important. Like they ask for a family-friendly, fun color thing. You then give them what you think they really meant. And what I mean by that is often what people ask for, it's not really what they mean. They meant something, but they used the wrong words. So you give them what they asked for. You give them what you think they meant. And then the coup de grace is you give them what they should have asked for.
Ooh, so three versions. Which one do most people end up picking?
It 100% depends because of the process. I can tell you about that in just a second. But as a designer, that is what I do. I fulfill the requirement they asked for. I figure out maybe what they really meant was this. For example, people will often say, oh, can you make it cooler? Can you make it cooler? And they'll say, add red to it. Well, if you add red, you're actually making it warmer. That's not cooler. So that's what I mean by what did they really mean versus what they said. So key art is designed by committee. So imagine a very common for a major studio. You've got the studio. The studio will contract with an ad agency or multiple ad agencies to come up with designs or concepts. Within those agencies, you have generally a pod. So you'll have a creative director who's the head of the pod for that movie. And then they'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 designers underneath them, right? So they'll come up with thousands of designs, often thousands. Those go back up the food chain. They go to the creative director at the ad agency is going to make a decision. The account executive at the ad agency is going to put their 2 cents in. Goes up to the movie studio. Who do you have at the movie studio? You have the marketing person at the movie studio. You have the producer of the film. You have the director of the film. And then on major films, you have the actors. You know, Tom Cruise decides what his poster is. Tom Hanks decides the poster. So it depends on who they are. If they're an A-list celebrity, they're voting. So can you imagine how many chefs you have to deal with going up the food chain? Right. That's exactly right.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And imagine you could have had the most amazing poster designed down at the ad agency side, and the creative director or the account executive kills it. It doesn't even go up the pipe.
That's a tragedy.
Yes, it is. I will tell you, most designers, the books you'll see, they want to put finishes. Like getting a finish is a big deal. Like, oh, that's my Batman poster. Or, oh, that's my Diary of a Teenage Girl poster. But the better comps are in the book, are the ones that hardly anyone ever saw. The better work. Yeah. You want the truth here on this podcast, right?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Okay, because I'm telling you the truth. 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Damn. Never really knew. I mean, sorry.
I'm so sorry. I was just going to say that's why so many posters look generic. Because the legal team, the people, they're afraid. They're like, oh, it's a comedy. It's got to be on white. Or it's got to be light colored. Or, 3 big heads in the sky with a little scene. That was so popular for so long because that's what people thought they were supposed to do.
I assume it's a little bit different when it comes to independent films. Like probably you get a little bit more freedom, and that's not much of a hierarchy as you have in studio films.
Absolutely, and that is the best. Film festivals or independent films are the best to design for. They're the most fun. They're the most creative. They pay crap if they pay at all, and you don't care. It's like a way to keep your chops up, but also to fulfill your soul. Because generally you're talking to the filmmaker and it's like, oh, let's create something amazing. There's can I recommend a designer or talk about a designer that's out there?
Please do.
Sorry, I think he is hands down the most interesting key art designer out there, period, paragraph. Tomasz Opolinski, and he's Polish, but he's here in America. He does the most amazing posters, but the ones you see are the film festivals or the independent films, because I find studios are too afraid to actually pick his stuff for a major motion picture because there's a kind of a visual vocabulary they're used to using.
True.
But his work is amazing.
Yeah. You lay out like multiple, like take 10 random posters together and then, just keep them side by side. You can see like, how do you call it? Like the visual cliches, I guess. Like they repeat on and on and on.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
one is like, the whole orange and teal palette, which I personally love, but yeah, it is cliche. But sometimes I guess it works.
Well, that's interesting. Well, I don't know that I would say it works. I'm a mixed mind about this. So let's talk about this for a second.
Yeah.
There is a visual vocabulary that we are used to communicating in, and I get that. Horror films, dark, green, or muddy colored, with a little red streak. But I think it does the community a disservice by always having to rely on those tropes to produce artwork. But on the other hand, you got to imagine folks are investing a gazillion dollars and they're afraid. They're just afraid. So I understand where it comes from. I just wish there were more risk takers out there. Yeah.
It's a tough thing. I mean, like when you are not the person making the decision, but you are the person who's designing, and you come up with something so amazing, and it never really
Yeah.
makes its way up the ladder.
Yeah.
Huh.
And so imagine, like, I'm trying to think of who would be listening to this podcast, for example, and wanting to make their own work. What's the purpose of the art? Now, if the purpose of the art is to get investors and to get it sold, then it probably would behoove you to communicate in the language that those folks are used to visually seeing things. Doesn't mean you can't be creative, but there's a reason why certain colors are used all the time. It's a message you're sending. Like, oh, it's that kind of film. Think about it this way: like Netflix or Hulu or Amazon. When you see the letterbox ads in there, I do a lot of those, lot. You're picking off color, tone, and image. Half the time you can't even see the title. And how do you pick? Oh, well, I'm looking at that. I know what that means. I know what those colors mean. I know to do one more click because it's familiar.
Got you.
If the dog is bothering you, let me know. I can stick him out.
No.
No? Okay. Sorry about that.
No. We encourage having pets on the show. So
okay, awesome. Yeah. So
if you can make a cameo, that would be like amazing.
I'll send you something. You can stick it in the corner. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, actually, here. Hold on.
Oops. Hey. Hi.
Wait. There we go. It's the opposite side. The camera's not mirrored, so I keep, when you're looking at yourself, but on the left that's my right, but for here it's on the left. It's very confusing.
Being a designer, still, I mean, like you have that whole left-right.
Yeah.
Paradox.
I will say camera left, camera right. Even if I'm talking to someone on the street, like I'm walking with someone. Oh, it's on camera left. It's like, what? Like, sorry, it's just how I talk.
Oh. Lisa, I've been curious. So sometimes, like I see on your portfolio, posters like live action, and then you have animation as well. So how does the dynamic differ when it comes to both these two? Categories?
That's really interesting. Animations are really fun because you're not dealing with likeness. So you're not having some celebrity who's going to look at his picture or her picture and say, no go.
So less ego.
Zero ego, which is great. And so I will tell you, animations are super, super fun. Although they're kind of, I'm trying to think of a polite word for this. They're formulaic as well. Definitely formulaic. I know when I worked on How to Train Your Dragon, that was really fun. That was a little more open. Disney tends to be a little too, not too, I don't want to say that. Disney is really formulaic. Like they have their method, if you will. And that's cool. I mean, I think it's all good. It's just knowing what you're getting into. Like, how do I want to explain this? There was a designer I worked with years ago who we were in the pod doing the design work and having a conversation. And he was doing this really crazy avant-garde, but probably wrong feeling for the film. And he's like, well, this is just what I want to do. And I said, well, yeah, but when you're hired to do a poster for Frozen, you don't show up with a poster for Saw 3. You know, it's the wrong feeling. You got to be really conscious of who your audience is and who you're talking to. And yeah, the Saw series is really super cool with all that texture. Not going to work for Frozen. No,
Exactly.
it's not. Yeah.
How do you differentiate? I mean, as a design, as a retoucher, as a finisher, how do you, you know, try to convince the higher ups that this is what works? Have you ever pushed for something before?
All right. So this is a really interesting thing for the process, and I will tell you, for the entertainment industry, period, paragraph, you don't get to. Like when I do stuff for Netflix or Amazon, or I'm invisible, they don't even know I'm there. If I do something for a studio directly, then I might have a chance. Might have a chance to push for it. So the best you can do is actually produce the work and submit it, but you don't get to go fight for it or talk about it. Which is why film festivals or independent films are awesome to work on, because you're actually having a dialogue with someone and saying, great, what are you trying to say here? What's your message? What's your story? Because keep in mind, most of these posters are done when the film's not even done. You know, the film's in production. So things are still being worked out.
Yeah.
Interesting, huh?
It is.
Yeah.
So, in general, how often do you, how early on do you come on board a film project?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It really depends. I will tell you, these days, it's late. It's very late because of COVID and because of filming, and we're working on stuff that's already in the can. So it's at the end of the game. And I will tell you, most designers never get to see the film or even a trailer or anything of what they're working on before they work on it. You might get to see some unit shots, but generally what designers work off of are scripts.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that interesting? Scripts. So imagine like Dune, the film Dune. I have to tell you, I haven't seen Dune, but is the Dune poster, I think they're beautiful, the Dune posters, but do they reflect the film, the color of the film? I don't know, because I thought the film was more browny and warm tones, but the poster is very cool and green cyan. Yeah. Very sci-fi color, by the way.
Exactly.
But I'll guarantee you the creative directors didn't get to see it. Isn't that fun? I mean, it's like, wait, you're building stuff that you don't get to see. And then, as I alluded to earlier, it is very problematic if you've seen it and then they want to sell it in a completely different way. So, do you remember the film Whiplash?
Whiplash, yes.
The drummer? Yeah, really intense. I got to work on the rebranding of that for America. And because it was doing so well, they were like, oh, now there's some money, let's rebrand it and we push it out to mainstream audience. And the directive I got was make it a warm feeling between this drummer and his mentor, and make it warm and like this, really mentor-mentee relationship. Have you seen that film? Oh my God, no. I mean, it was awful. It was like, the film was great. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. The relationship between those
people
was horrible. It was toxic and hard. And so I thought I had seen it already. And I struggled because they wanted this warm, fuzzy kumbaya between these two characters. I was like, I don't need the film. Oh. So my finish didn't get picked, my design, because it was too cold.
Makes sense. Just when you talk about all these marketing and everything, the case study that comes to my head is Deadpool. I don't know if you knew anybody who worked on that and the marketing. But I think that was like one of those projects where you had the producer, like Ryan Reynolds, involved in it as well. And they kind of went a little bit, how do you call it? They went a bit wild on that one.
Yes. So I believe Deadpool was done by a company called BLT and Associates, and I work for them all the time. I just don't work on that.
Gotcha.
But that would be ideal when the producer or the star is involved. That's how it should be. I mean, it's a collaborative effort. It really would be awesome. God, what was the film I worked on? Oh, I'm terrible with the names. I'm so sorry because I don't do the art titles generally, so someone else does them. And often we have fake names for the film for the majority of the production for
Really?
secrecy
Oh
reasons.
yeah. The working
Yeah,
titles.
yeah. So Robert Rodriguez, and it's the kids, the Lava Kids. I forget what it's the kid film he started doing, and they Lava Girl and Space Boy, and
Shark
I
Boy
forgot.
and Flower Girl.
Yeah, yeah.
Spy
So
Kids.
Robert,
Oh, no, not Spy
yeah, it was that film series. There's a bunch of
Yeah.
them.
Okay.
I think 3 or 4 of them. He actually came in because he's really into Photoshop, and it was so cool. And they were like, "Oh, come on in. Let Lisa show you a bit of what she can do." And that was amazing because he got involved. Like he's there. He's like, "Oh, what is this? Let's see." And wow, you can do that. Oh, that's cool. This is what I'm looking for. Or show me how to do it because I want to work on it a little bit.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
rare.
awesome. Oh, like never.
No.
In 30 years, I can remember one time, and it was him. Yeah. So yeah, it's really interesting, and I think it's you and I were talking about this earlier about for filmmakers. I would get involved early. Like tell them you work so hard. You've got a cinematographer. You've worked out the color themes. You've worked up, and because the colors are part of the story. Why not get involved early? Why not?
Exactly.
Why not while
Yeah.
you're shooting? And here's the other thing, because you get unit photography, but you get crappy unit photography. Why not try to get really good shots while you're filming? You've got makeup and stylists. You've got that all done. Hire a photographer, not like a snap and shoot person, but like a proper photographer to be on the set for one day. Set up a little set right off, you're shooting here,
Yeah.
set up a little location here that you can capture all that. You've done all the work. Why not?
Has there ever been any instance where you had to, I guess, work with stills from the film itself?
Oh.
You know.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. So I'll tell you some secrets, and you can tell because they're grainy and kind of crappy. There's one poster, I didn't do this, but it's a perfect example. It's Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet, when her memory gets erased. Oh, crap.
Eternal Sunshine.
That's it. That poster, which is really cool. It's the poster with all the layers. Turned up. Those are unit shots because you can tell it's super grainy, but it works. It 100% works with that. I will tell you a few things. We have to use unit shots all the time. And when you see a bad head strip, that's what it's from. Because there's only so much you can do. And they shoot body doubles. And here's the other thing, it's kind of fascinating. Actors will often refuse to do a photo shoot. And
really?
Yeah, for a variety
of reasons. How that goes in the contract.
Right? I don't know how that works, but often it works. And it goes that way. And they won't stand in a particular way. They won't do a pose. And the funny thing is they can refuse, but we're going to do it anyway. We'll just use a body double. Or we'll just cut their arms and do it ourselves. So I find the resistance is futile. If you want it to be your body, you might as well just shoot it. But I get it. It's a different world. Yeah. And then there's a really interesting thing that happens. Like there was a film just a long time ago, back when there were video boxes, and there was a supermodel named Elle Mcpherson, and she did a film. I don't remember what the film was called.
She was in Knight Rider, right?
I don't
Was it
know.
her? It was a McPherson.
And so we're talking about a long time ago, and it's something about romancing Eve or something. Anyway, there was no shots of her, no good shots of her. It's Elle Mcpherson, a supermodel. Are you kidding? You can't get a good shot of her? Like, wait, what? Because there was only unit photography, and they just didn't have a photographer. A decent photographer doesn't cost that much. It really doesn't. And it was shocking. So the poster looked, the video box, I'm dating myself again here, is crap because they didn't have any decent material. So yes, get a photographer.
Yeah. I want to go back a little bit to, the process where you said, you mentioned like how you guys go back and start from scratch. So what material do you get? So you get the whole reference that the designer came up with. Do you get the Photoshop file? Or do you get just the raw files and like everything?
I get all of it. So everything. Okay, I'm into telling the truth. So a lot of designers and Photoshop users are self-taught. So because of that, their habits are not really great. And with the advent of streaming and people watching films on their phone, the marketing needs are completely different. So how it was back in the old days is you would do one vertical piece of art and one horizontal piece of art. A piece of film would actually be produced, like an 8x10 piece of film, colored film, and that would be sent to multiple countries, and they would rescan it and reprint posters from that, because you wouldn't send digital files. Then we started sending digital files, which was awesome. You wouldn't have to print out the film, which is very expensive. You'd send a print with it for a color reference, like physically mail a print with a digital file, like FedEx or something. And then what happened, go years and years later, now we're streaming. Now you need to have something that's called modular art. And what that means is they need to be able to move everybody. Because you did a vertical poster. There was a job, Terminator, the last Terminator, the most recent one.
Yeah.
Terminator 75, who the hell knows what number it is now. And I was at an agency. So one agency did the artwork, did the poster, non-modularly. That means everybody's merged, their color effects, their flares. It's a mess. The files are like 25 gigs, huge files, huge Photoshop files. There was this poor young man next to me in the studio. I was now working at another agency because I had my own business, so I work for all the agencies. He is whimpering in the corner because he is trying to figure out, I'm not kidding, figure out how to make the characters all look the way they did in the poster, but be able to move them, because he was doing an AV. He was doing a trailer with it. Not live action, this was print. But he's trying to do a motion graphic. And the file was impossible because it was so complicated, because it was built so badly. So as a finisher, that's my job, is to make it modular. And something that should take 4 hours could take 12 hours, because I have to re-engineer the whole thing, which is crackers. So I'm on a mission to teach designers how to build modularly. I will tell you another little story about, if this interests you at all, I don't know.
It is.
These stories. Oh, okay.
I just got out of finalizing the poster, which we are supposed to release tomorrow for the film that I was just telling you about earlier. And I think what you mean by modular is like having everything like separate layers, so you can just move things around. And
and not just separate layers, because imagine if you have a flare coming in on me, and now you need to move me over to the left, but now the flare is over there on the right. So now I'm going to be a whole different color when you move me to the right, but the flare's over here. So do you need to take the flare with? What, does that make sense? And some people, when they do their Photoshop, they mask out people with their color correction.
Okay.
Because they don't build their file right. I mean, your file construction is a really huge deal. You don't have this guy on top and punch out people. You have this guy in the back. So I know this sounds obvious, but people do not build their files like this. They do not. And then, so that's a huge problem. And people are starting to learn, because anymore, do you remember I said you had two boards you'd build, a vertical and a horizontal? Netflix, I think the requirement is 37 boards. 37 different boards now. When I say boards, 37. I mean layouts. 37.
Oh.
Netflix, because you're looking at it on your phone, and what size is that? You're looking at it, you have the big long banner, and then you have the short, and then you have the really short, and then there's social, and then there's blah, 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 blah. So I just did a series for a film, Red Notice, with
Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah. So they were unit shots. And not only were they a unit shot, so you've got 3 characters in a unit shot, head to foot. They are 1/4 of the frame, 1/4 of a 35 millimeter frame. There's no detail, there's no nothing. So I ended up having to use, for Ryan's coat, a 3D program to rebuild his outfit, his tuxedo.
What?
Yeah, I used a 3D program. Clever that way. I used a thing called Pixel Squid to rebuild his coat and his tie, because I didn't have anything. It was mush. It was literally mush. And then there's ways in Photoshop, like Dwayne Johnson's outfit. He had a really beautiful tux on that has this like satiny filigree. I had to create that using filters in Photoshop, using patterns, because on the film there was nothing. There was nothing on the digital file. So that's another big aspect of finishing. That's the skill of a finisher versus a designer. A designer doesn't have to worry about that. You know,
Who would have
designers
thought?
just put them together.
I had no clue that this field was so complicated.
Oh, good heavens. Yeah, it's crazy complicated. Because also a designer doesn't have to figure that out. A designer is building a Photoshop file that's this big and it looks good. And I can't tell you, darling, how many people are approving these things off a phone. They're literally looking at a phone going, yeah, that looks great. And then that has to be produced and put on the sunset wall, right? The sunset wall, you know, 18-story building. But the designer doesn't worry about that. The finisher has to worry about that.
So that makes, I mean, it makes sense why the finishers get paid twice as much.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
Well, it's important. It's the end. And anymore, we don't get much time. We don't get much, you know, if you got 2 days to do a finish, that's a miracle. 2 days. We used to get a week.
So is that, so a week is roughly the standard amount, or?
No, a week, like you used to get a week. So I would get, and if you had a weekend, hot diggity, dog diggity, that's 7 days, right? But you get 5 days to build a file from scratch. And that's how it used to be. Now you get 2 days. Sometimes they want the same day, which is, that's just crazy talk. Crazy talk. Because the time has been eaten up by everybody in the food chain. Do you know what I mean? So there's a release
I
date.
get you. Yes.
Yeah. And do we want that poster? No. Can you guys a different head? What if you make his coat blue? Wait, what if we put and all that time is eating into your deadline, and then you've got a magazine ad that's got to be produced, and it's $100,000 buy. Like they have paid $100,000 to put that ad in a magazine. You got to do it. You got to do it today.
This is starting to sound more and more like, you know, you're doing visual effects, but on one single document.
Yeah. Well, and then here, so you said visual effects. There's the other for me. You get folks who design a visual effect, a logo, and the After Effects dude did it, or someone in Maya or Cine 4D for the film. Well, that file's that big. I got to put this on a building. I have to try to recreate something that's flat and redo it. Like yesterday, I literally spent 2 hours tracing out a logo that was done in a audio-visual program, either After Effects or something like that, because I had to make the letters crisp. I tried to draw them literally with a path, redraw the letters to sharpen them up. Yeah. But okay. I also really want to encourage people to do this. For someone listening to your podcast is going to be like, God, I'd love to do posters. It is a great industry to work in. It is fun. It pays well. You get to work on all this really cool stuff. And there's not a lot of people doing it. Like you can't even hardly find a finisher on projects these days in LA. We are in such high demand.
Wow.
So come work for us. It's really fun. A little crazy, but you know, okay.
That's amazing. So just for whoever's listening, talk to us about, you know, what programs you suggest learning besides Photoshop, like the most obvious.
Okay, so yeah, Photoshop, absolutely. Maybe Adobe Illustrator. And folks who gravitate towards type, I do not. I'm dyslexic. I can't spell, so type is not my wheelhouse. But Illustrator is a really great program to learn. After Effects, because you're going to be dealing with people who are doing trailers, and if you know what you can get out of a file, that would be amazing. Or you can combine your skill. So you could sell yourself as, hey, I could do your trailer and I can do your poster. So that's a good business decision. Then there's, for me, I will tell you the program I'm currently working on learning is Substance. Substance 3D. It was bought by Adobe because I need to know more how to do 3D work. And since it's Adobe product now, it's going to have more Adobe feeling interface versus Cinema 4D. Cinema 4D, awesome program to use. My brain just, hates it. But Cinema 4D, if you can learn it, wow, you'll totally work. It'd be great. Really, really great.
Awesome. And how do you, since you worked in the industry for quite some time, the technological demands that have changed from back when, Photoshop initially came out to what you have right now, like, I can't keep up with the demands of like whatever project we are doing like right now. So I can only imagine like how it must be for you guys having to create.
I will tell you, it's such a
building.
Right. This is such a great conversation to have. And I was just talking to someone over at Showtime about this yesterday. It is really hard to stay relevant and current with the software because it is changing all the time. And if you don't, you're going to become obsolete. And that's frightening. That is absolutely frightening. So it's kind of incumbent upon you to keep learning. But how do you do it? Like, I'm a 30-year Photoshop user. I can be very arrogant about, what are you going to show me in Photoshop, please? But I have to remember, they keep coming up with new technology. There's new stuff. And then there's other providers, software providers who come up with new technology. So to combat that, or maybe I'm just lucky, I'm an educator. I love teaching. Teaching Photoshop fills me in a way that it is so gratifying, way more than producing key art does, oddly enough. So I teach, and I teach to keep myself relevant, if that makes sense. So because students will come up and go, oh, how do I make this? How do I do this? I'm like, oh, I don't know. Or, oh, hey, did you know that Photoshop just came out with this brand new select subject? I better learn it because someone's going to ask me, what is that?
It always keeps you, on your toes because you're always going to have to teach somebody, and like there's always, sometimes students come up to you and they're like, "Oh, did you see this new feature? Did you see that new feature?" So you gotta stay relevant, like you said.
Yeah, and then I think it's also about keep investing in yourself. So, for example, there's a conference. It's online for free, Adobe Max. It used to cost a ton of money to go to, but now it's free. I participate in Adobe Max every year. There are 300 classes, all for free. Maxadobe.com, I believe, is where you can find it for free. And I'll take the Illustrator course just to see it. Oh, God, can you do that in Illustrator now? Wow, I didn't know that. And then I start incorporating it. So there are ways to stay current without costing yourself some money. And they do After Effects classes, Premiere classes, editing classes, audio classes, all sorts of stuff.
The internet has become such an amazing place if you want to learn, like especially design. Like you mentioned before, so many designers are self-taught. Like same with me, with Photoshop, Illustrator, self-taught, pretty much any design program. And it's
kind of the bane of YouTube. It's amazing and awful.
Yeah.
All the time, right? Like YouTube, I'm like, people can learn stuff for free, and then people want, I should be able to learn how to master Photoshop for free on the internet. And what you will learn on the internet, like YouTube, for example, is you'll learn some tips and tricks, which is awesome. But what you won't learn is a professional workflow.
Talk to me about that.
What is it? Yeah. So what you won't learn on YouTube is, when you're doing entertainment art, you have to make it modular because Netflix wants 37 boards. You don't learn that. You don't learn necessarily how to solve problems when you need it. So at 3 a.m, let's say you had to mask my hair out and you took a YouTube class, and the YouTube class talks about someone shot on gray background and you mask out the hair. I'm not shot on a gray background. And look, I have every color under the sun here. Oh, wait a minute. How are you going to do that? And so I think while YouTube is awesome, and for people in some podunk area where they have no access, wow, here you go. But what happens when you have to do professional jobs? They don't talk to you about color spaces. So are you in sRGB or Adobe RGB, and why? And Apple wants all their stuff done in display.
I am yet to see. You're very right. Like, I mean, I have yet to see a video that talks about color spaces. I haven't come across one yet.
Or you're printing. So we're doing screen resolution stuff. So everything's being seen on monitors and devices. But, you want a billboard for that? Well, that's CMYK. well, how do you get that RGB to CMYK with the proper colors? And well, you know what that boils down to? Way back to the design stage. You don't want a designer who doesn't understand that this art has to be seen in multiple worlds. So let's say this happens for Apple TV for some of the animations. There's a show called The Helpers on Apple. It's a puppet, like a Muppets kind of thing. Super saturated colors. Well, when they designed that, no one looked at it for CMYK. Never. And I bet had they would have made some different decisions, because then by the time it came to print it, those colors were not reproducible on a printing press. Uh-oh. Now we have a branding issue, don't we? Because we can't match the branding.
Oh,
yeah.
So
these are it's complicated. Like any field, it's complicated. And I don't want to discourage people. I actually want to encourage people to join the field. It is very complicated. There's a lot of moving parts.
That's what the past 45 minutes have taught me. Because I didn't, this is so educational. Like,
oh, good. I mean, it's a little esoteric. It's a little specific, let's say. But I think entertainment industry, everybody involved, it's good to know. It really is. Like if you're a director or a producer, you should know that this is complicated, and then maybe you'll get material earlier in the game. You know what I mean? Like when you're shooting, you shoot it right then and there, so you know, and you're not hamstrung later when it's further down the line and there's no time or money left.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Lisa, in your words, what do you think constitutes for like a bad poster? How would you describe that?
Okay. A bad poster for me, initially my gut reaction is bad craftsmanship. So if it's just poorly done, and sometimes in the spirit of trying to get that formula down, like they insist, this guy's head's got to be turned this way, and this lady's head has to be turned that way, and the lighting is all wrong, the body's all wrong, and like they won't surrender that, no, that's not going to work. And then you get, we've all seen it, those really crappy head strips where the light's coming from one side on the head and the other side on the body. Like, just don't do that. I think I get really offended when, this is so stupid, I can't believe I'm going to say this, when posters don't feel like the film. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I feel like I've been sold a bag of goods, and I have been the person selling the bag of goods. Like, have the poster feel like the product. Yeah, it's kind of like don't make a family-friendly poster for a really disturbing dark comedy, unless you're trying to trick people in there, right? The other thing I think folks should consider maybe more often is be brave and do concept posters. So concept posters are where it's not a star-driven movie. Like Tom Cruise, Mission Impossible, you're never going to have a concept poster. It's always going to have his head and probably profile, because that's what he likes. He likes a profile. And he likes a big head poster. Look at all his posters. You'll see it, profile or big old head. And he gets, but if you don't have a decent photographer, or if it's not I don't want to say this sounds wrong, when it's not celebrity driven, that's probably a better way of saying it. Like the draw is not going to be, they're going to see that celebrity and think, oh, that's who I want to see their film. Then you have more freedom to be concept and have, like Fight Club. Think of the poster for Fight Club. Even though it was big celebrities, they sold it with a soap bar with a big logo, Fight Club, on it. Great poster. I didn't do it.
The marketing for Fight Club was like total misdirection, right?
Total misdirection. Yeah. I will tell you the thing about funny thing about Fight Club is because of how they marketed it, I had zero interest. I was like, hell no, I'm not going to see that film. And then I was on a plane and I saw it because I was on a plane, and I was like, oh, this movie's great. This is a great movie. But because it was sold differently, I thought I wouldn't be interested in it. The designer I mentioned earlier, Tomasz Opolinski, he's got a bunch of concept-driven posters, and oh my heavens, they're stunning, absolutely stunning. So maybe we can find a way I can get you the information of how to view his work, because he's so good, really good.
We probably should have him on the show sometime.
Yeah, he's amazing and such a great educator. He's really into talking about the possibilities and exploring and always pushing himself to do new work. Yeah. What else about bad posters? Yeah. Craftsmanship, and then not being true to the piece, to what the show is, to what the vibe is or what the feel is. And then maybe that's a conversation. How do you sell your film? Like, what is the visual communication? You know, in a film, you get all these frames and all this sound and all this stuff you can get your idea across. In a poster, you have one single frame. That's tough to sell your whole concept.
Definitely is.
And yeah, it's hard, but it needs, it warrants some thought, I think. A lot of thought.
Yeah. I have so many questions. I'm just trying to figure out which one I'm going to throw at you next.
I mean, you know, it's so interesting. Like, so imagine the poster for Heredity. What I liked about that is really dark and creepy, textury, very, very generic horror texture and color. But I love how they had I got to work on that poster. I did not design it, but I got to finish it. How they have the mom and all her roughness, and she looks just rough. And then they've got the creepy kid right at the bottom, and then the little bird thing. And it totally, for me, it felt like the film. Definitely. And it's weird. It's a weird poster, and it's really cool, I think. Yeah.
Weird is good. Sometimes, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for that film, it was a weird film. So, yeah.
Yeah. I cannot watch that more than once. I haven't seen it more than once.
No. There's many films like that I can't see again. I just can't. No. Saw it. Thank you. I am done. I'll tell you a poster I just worked on that I thought was talking about bad posters. God, I don't want to get in trouble for this, but screw it. I'm going to say it. Netflix has a show called Don't Look Up. It's a film. Netflix did a film called Don't Look Up. It's got Leo DiCaprio.
Don't Look Up. Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Don't Look Up. I worked on the poster. Yeah. It's awful. The poster is awful. It's awful. It doesn't sell the film. It doesn't have the.
Is that the one with the letters and like the
letters with all the heads in it?
Yeah. Oh awful. Yeah.
Awful. I did that. Thank you. Awful. Because it doesn't feel like the film.
I'm yet to watch it. But yeah.
Oh, watch it. It's dark. You're not going to feel good when you're done with it, but it's. I thought it was timely and good to watch. Yeah, but if you look at the poster tells you nothing about that film. Nothing. Yeah.
This is probably like one of the most interesting discussions I've had because I love, like I said, I love posters and I love designing my own stuff as well. And it just goes to show that there's so much that I don't know, and it makes me want to keep learning more. And that's one of the best things that I noticed in all the guests that I brought on the show. They're constant lifelong learners, and they never take no for an answer. The whole resilience factor is there, and I never knew that it would translate this well into poster design at the same time. It's fascinating.
Oh, that's good. Oh, that makes me really happy. Yeah, good.
You mentioned that some designers are they get the script, they work off of the script, and I mean that gives you, when you read the script versus when you watch a movie, when you're watching a movie, you're watching the interpretation of what was shot, but the script, you are imagining it in your head, and whatever you come up with based on the materials that you are handed over. It's do you think that's more organic and more authentic when it comes through the designer that way, once they read the script?
That's an interesting question. I will say when the designer reads the script, I think it's kind of like an actor having the backstory to their character, which is awesome. However, there is such a huge step missing there, which is the cinematography, I think. To not have an idea of what the cinematography is and the visual story, because there's the story.
The aesthetic, I guess. The film's aesthetic.
Yeah, the aesthetic. That's a great word for it. Thank you. That's a great word for it. And that is so critical because it's how we take in what we're looking at, the color and the tone. And I'm always amazed how often designers could do a really great job without having that information. Now, part of that is formulaic. So if you're doing Spider-Man, super candy color, you know what that is. If you're doing the Batman series, it's rote. We know what it is. We know the tone. You may not know the exact color scheme, but you know the tone. So you can work on it that way. But I wish more of that was available early on, or should be a part of the conversation. What's this looking like? Because people have done, there's scrapboards done. There's a cinematographer. Like, who did I just see a thing about? Guillermo Del Toro. Like, man, his stuff. If you're working on one of his pieces, you want to start looking at what he's looking at. Do you know what I mean? Because he is so tactile in his filming.
Yes, he's
and
very
specific.
visual, and like that's so much detail that goes into like production design, like literally everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of this, all that detail, how often do you get briefs where you're asked to hide things in plain sight?
I have never been. Do people do it? Yes. I have never been on my design stuff. And I think probably because I also don't do design work on A titles. A titles, like the blockbuster movies, when they go to an agency, they're going to a pod that all those people do are designers. They don't split their roles. Like I split my role as a designer and a finisher. So I wouldn't be on one of those
Gotcha.
kind of films. But there's a lot of thought that goes into just generically, like what's the plaque on the wall in the picture? Like let's say there's a film and I'm standing in a garage and there's some tools behind me. I assure you everything is thought out. Like why is that there? Why is that sign there? Why is what objects are put in there? It's not generally left to what was in the photo.
And do these posters go out to I don't know, test groups before it goes out to the public?
God, I don't think, man. No. God, I'm trying to think if that's ever happened. And if it did, maybe 20 years ago that might have happened, but no.
Not anymore. Okay.
No. Are you kidding? We're barely getting it out before the piece is coming out, especially because anymore it's being released online. Films are being released online, so it's ever since COVID, holy guacamole, everything has changed in terms of the visual. Everything has changed on films, and it's no longer poo-pooed to release a major motion picture online. So
besides sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so the marketing needs are very different now.
Fair enough. Yeah. Landscape.
Can I give a site out for folks if they want to check out like every poster?
100%,
IMPawards.com. IMPawards.com. I think they have posters going back to 1920, 1935, 19 something. It's amazing. It's hands down the best resource.
The link will be in the description.
Fantastic.
So you guys can check it out.
And they also have TV and streaming on there too, because that's the weird thing too. It's not just cinema now; it's cinema and streaming, and it's all blurred.
Yeah, the boundaries are definitely getting blurred. Lisa, besides animation, has there been any other instance where you had to work on something that didn't necessarily require live action elements? I'm talking about more.
Concept posters. Yeah, concept posters all the time. Yeah, where you do drawings or you do paintings. Like, it's interesting. Most of the painting comps you'll see out there are actually done off a live action photo that they painted on top of. I'm trying to think. Driver, something. I'm so bad with these titles.
Baby Driver.
Thank you. That's
Driver.
it. Yeah, that was illustrated, but most of that was illustrated straight off photos, not someone illustrated it. So using drawing techniques in Photoshop or on the iPad, Fresco, that kind of thing. Procreate.
It's very interesting. Sorry?
Procreate's another app that illustrators use all the time to do poster work.
Heard of it. Another thing that's kind of interesting are the whole Mondo posters that come out. Mondo.
I don't know what that is.
I'm pretty sure if you see it, like you'll know it. I'm just trying to figure out how to describe it. I'll send you a link.
Okay, cool. I
Yeah.
will tell you, I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, honey, but when you've been doing this as long as I've been doing it, like I don't show a portfolio. I don't need to show a portfolio. And I find like I'm missing all this current stuff. Like, I'm going to be really honest, like actors and actresses anymore, they'll say, oh, make Tabitha shiny. And I'm like, who's Tabitha? Is she the blonde or the brunette? Like, I have no clue who people are anymore because I've been doing this like for 1,000 years. So I'm sorry, I don't know who Mondo is or what Mondo is, or sorry. Yeah.
I'll send you a link.
Okay.
Brilliant. Lisa, this has been truly enlightening session, and I look forward to a part 2.
To a what?
I'm looking forward to a second part of this episode.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I hope folks are interested because I think it is really fascinating. And again, it's a great career to move into, or it's a great way to continue your film project and still have your hands in it, and not give it up to somebody else and maybe lose it at the end, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yep. If you are a control freak, like certain people are, wink, wink.
Yes. Not naming names, are we?
No, not at all. But
Yeah,
because people on both sides of this conversation have the same problem.
Yeah. Well, it's why we are advancing in our careers, probably, because we're control freaks, because we're working on it. We're doing it. So
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah.
100%. Lisa, thank you so much again for
my absolute pleasure. Yeah,
then,
cool.
This is Junkyard Theory, folks.